Welcome to Heart of the Order. We have a lot to break down. First and foremost, Richie Mack, how you guys doing?
Doing
What
great.
up?
We have Shohei Ohtani. He's signed. He's a Dodger, $700 million. We can break that down later. We got a lot of things that have happened with the Cardinals since we kind of last talked. Tyler O'Neill's traded. We got a couple relievers for him. We can break that down as well. And then we are probably entering in the heart of the Yamamoto sweepstakes. And we have a lot of trade discussions going on. We have Dylan Cease on the board. We have Tyler Glass now on the board. We have Shane Bieber. We have Logan Gilbert. We have a ton of options the Cardinals can explore. Some people say we're not even in the starting pitching market anymore. Some people claim we are. Kitty Wu wrote an article today that still said that we are in the starting pitching market. My information confirms that we're still in the starting pitching market. But before we really get into the guts of our discussions tonight, first and foremost, Tyler O'Neill, he's gone. Mac, what do you think about the return package that we got for him? And do you think that we're going to have any contribution at the major league level?
Yeah, I'm fine with it personally. I understand that there's a lot of folks that are on the Tyler O'Neill as a guy that's got multiple Gold Gloves. When healthy and when he's right, he can. You've seen it a couple seasons ago. He put up MVP type numbers, but there is a lot of uncertainty there, and I think the return we got back is fine. I think it'll it might not be enough in most people's eyes, but I think it's fine. You got a guy that's 25 years old, he's got some upside in your bullpen, um, and then you have a flyer prospect. I think that's kind of a realistic expectation. It sheds money from the current books, which allows you to pivot to other moves. So I'm fine with it, and I think that Nick Robertson, you probably will see him have some success in the Cardinals bullpen this year. He's got some really nasty stuff, especially his sweeper, which I think comes in at like 86 miles an hour. It's got a lot of deception on it, like 14 inches of horizontal run. So it looks like we targeted a lot of Boston's farm within the Rule 5 draft, and then we also, dealt with Boston. So it makes me think that in my own conspiracy, maybe there is some merit to Yane Bloom being, advising us in some certain aspects.
Yeah, I thought about that notion the other day. You tweeted it, and it sounded like Jeff Jones kind of alluded to it. Right now, the Cardinals deny any connection with Hein Bloom. However, you have, like you said, you have to kind of wonder if there is something lurking behind the scenes because not only, like you said, we raid Boston in the Rule 5, but obviously we made the trade with Boston, and we know Boston called a couple days before the deal was done. There was the trade with Verdugo to the Yankees. There was a possibility of that working out anyways without any Hein Bloom conspiracy theory, but you're right. There has been a clear target. It seems like of Boston's um, minor league organization as a whole, as far as their players. Richie, look, we're going to really attack you tonight because you've just been a negative Nancy. I have no other way to put it. Um, what do you think is the future for the rest of the Cardinals offseason? It's still early. There's still a ton left to do, but the way you talk, they're done.
No. I don't think they're done. Dude, a lot of my negativity comes from I don't think they're going to be in the Yamamoto market, as, I've told you guys multiple times, but that's just, I guess, me feeling negative about the front office. I don't know where it comes from, man, but I still would have to hope they continue to add on. Like, I mean, no one knows what they're doing behind the scenes right now. They could be cooking up something absolutely outrageous and, something no one would expect, but who knows? That's all I can say. My negative feelings come from looking at the starting rotation saying, okay, I could see them just rolling into the season with it and being fine with it. Mo has done it before. They tend to overvalue their guys a little bit. So it's more of just I feel like Yamamoto is a stretch. I don't really understand why people are so optimistic that we are even in the running at this point, considering how much Shohei was, $700 million. I would have to imagine Yamamoto gets more than he was expected to before that contract. But yeah, there's really not much other than I could see them rolling into the season with this rotation, but hopefully they're able to make a trade for someone that complements well with Sonny Gray. So we have a 1-2 punch in the playoffs.
I listen. Do I in my heart believe we're going to get Yoshinobu Yamamoto? No, I don't. I think the Cardinals mean it when they say they're going to explore a trade. Now, there is a little conspiracy theory in my head that has been cooking up the past, I don't know, 24 hours, and I'll kind of get into that too for fun. But overall, I think the Cardinals are really going to dive deep into the trade market, and that's going to be tough in its own right. I mean, look, we got rumors that the Dodgers may look at Tyler Glasnow, who I thought could be the most easiest and cheapest to obtain. That may not be the case anymore. You have Dylan Cease, who's going to cost an arm and a leg. Obviously, we know any young pitcher from Seattle or Miami is going to be a price a lot of the fan base, they don't want to pay. So maybe Cleveland and Shane Bieber. Now, there's a ton of people that are down on Shane, and they don't want him at all. So when you kind of look at the overall scope of the market, the trade market's not going to be easy either. So, do I think the Cardinals are going to spend $300 million? I don't. But there is a part of me I don't believe he's going to get 300 million. And you could call me crazy and think that I'm out of touch. I'm not so sure. I think the hype for this guy has just built up tremendously. We've seen a lot of inaccuracy in the reporting this offseason. And I think a lot of people are building up the suspense and making it very dramatic. And let's not forget, it doesn't mean that it's all about the money. He could have a certain location. Now it's rumors that he's a fashionable guy and he likes the big lights in the big city. And if that's true, then the Cardinals never had a shot anyways. But really, just to count them out, like you might have Richie and everybody else, I think everyone's downplaying the Cardinals' real interest and intent with Yamamoto. And maybe we don't get him. And I think that's really a big disservice, especially with everything that took place and really everything aligned so well for them to back off. There's a lot of ways you can structure a contract. You obviously we're seeing this trend of deferrals. You can make it to where you backload it, front load it, however you want. And I think the Cardinals could financially make it work without it crippling them. And we know DeWitt has money, but I think you could even do it without it looking outrageous. But needless to say, Yamamoto in itself, I think, is slowly slipping from our grasp as far as our hopes and dreams go. And Mac, I know you have been the biggest, the proponent for Yamamoto, and I can even get the sense that even you are waning just as everybody else is. Where do you think the Cardinals are going to go next?
Well, to be quite honest with you, yes, my optimism is waning. Like I think that's pretty clear. Just given the direction of what the Cardinals have already invested in their starting rotation, and then seeing what Shohei got, and we really haven't seen the rest of the starting pitching market crumble yet. So you really don't know what the value is outside of what has been numerously reported by Ken Rosenthal and John Heyman and Jeff Passan is they believe, and this is, I have merit to believe them when they say that they are inclined to believe that Yamamoto might get close to 300 million. And that was a number that I always seen the Cardinals. It was not a vast reality. I thought that the Cardinals would entertain going up to like 250, but then with the posting fee too, it really starts bringing into questionable. Like how much do you want to invest on this guy with him never throwing a pitch in baseball? I mean, there is a varying degree of difficulty level coming over and throwing a larger baseball than they do in Japan. So I mean, there is a little bit of a difference. Now, while I say that though, it will not surprise me if the Cardinals, like if they see this out. Like I really do believe that they could be meeting with him, and maybe they don't land him, but I just don't see a reality where they're not going to see this whole thing out. With that being said, though, what do I think they need to make a move for? I think the Cardinals need to really try to get Dylan Cease out of Chicago like ASAP. That's generally what I think will happen. I think that the White Sox and the Cardinals line up very well together. The Cardinals have a lot of enticing pieces for a team that's potentially going to go through a short-term rebuild. Um, and then on top of that, the Cardinals, they called on Cease at the deadline, even though they weren't in contention. They called on Cease. They were one of the first teams to call on him this offseason, which has been numerously reported now. And the guy's only going to be owed $5.8 million this year, and he's still arbitration eligible next year. So it kind of fits within that mold of the Cardinals, and kind of some of the things that they've kind of talked about with not knowing what direction they're going to have with Valley Sports, even though we might have a resolution quicker than the latter. But I think, though, like Derek Gould reported that a source that he had talked to inside the Cardinals organization said the Valley situation is real. So there is financial flexibility concern, and that's one thing that makes me lead to believe that they won't financially commit to Yamamoto, but there's no reason that you can't go out there and trade pieces necessary to get Dylan Cease out of Chicago for $5.8 million and solidify your rotation going into the year.
And the Cardinals have room to play with. And, to also Mo's credit, he's also made several comments that the ownership is poised to spend even if it's, at a deficit, which I don't think the Cardinals are going to operate in a deficit, but I don't think they'll need to. I think if they make the moves that the fan base wants to see, will show up. I mean, really, a lot of us will show up regardless if they make any moves, and the early season results will dictate the rest of the season's attendance. So you could go into the season with this rotation, and they win games, everything will take care of itself. But I think you're making an awfully large bet on hedging winning games with the rotation as it is right now. I do. I don't think that the Cardinals have a staff at the moment that can compete in the National League. I think you need a top of the rotation guy to pair with Sonny Gray, and I think if you get that, you're looking at a situation where you can actually compete. You can go series to series and win them and sweep them, and you find yourself with a first round bye, and you're not in a wild card game. I think that's the mindset this team needs to have, and I think if the Cardinals go out and get a top of the rotation starter, it's a clear and evident obvious answer that they are thinking that way. But if they go into the season with the rotation that they have, I think they're kidding themselves, and I think they're setting themselves up for another "I told you so" from this fan base. And I think people are going to lose their jobs. That's what I think is going to happen. If they go into the rotation or into the season with this current rotation and this current roster, and all they do is add to the bullpen, we're going to see people lose their jobs because I do not see this rotation competing. But that's food for thought, and that's my opinion. Overall, though, I do like what the Cardinals have done so far. If Lynn, Gibson, Gray are pieces of more of the puzzle to come, which I think it is, I like the overall structure of how things are looking. And I agree with you on Dylan Cease. I think he's the guy that you might want to go out and get quick. If not Dylan Cease, I think Gilbert's going to cost you Gorman. And I don't know what Glasnow is going to cost. I don't. But I do know they're shopping Alec Burleson. And I don't believe he should be traded for just a bullpen piece. Maybe a younger arm with some maybe upside. I could see something like that. But if you're trading Alec Burleson and the way the Cardinals view him, regardless of how you view them, the listener here, or Mac or Richie, regardless how you view them, Alec Burleson, the Cardinals are super stoked, and we know how they overvalue players. I assure you they're not going to trade Alec Burleson for anything less than a young starting pitcher with upside, preferably a starting pitcher that they can put in a package for to be a top-line guy. That's what the Cardinals would prefer to do. Richie, I want to kind of get your opinion on, you got Cease, you got Glasnow, you got Bieber. We went over them. You don't think we're going to get Yamamoto. You're not necessarily believing that we're done, as you said. Who would you target?
I think you have to go for Cease just because of the control. I know he's probably out of the three going to cost you the most, but we talked about this before. There's so much depth on this team, especially in the outfield. Even when you get rid of Tyler O'Neill, you've got guys lined up. I mean, you drafted with your top first round pick last year a very, very good outfielder. So there are guys lined up out there: Victor Scott, Alec Burleson, Dylan Carlson. I mean, the list goes on and on. I don't see a reason why you can't find a place for some of those guys and get starting pitching in return, especially, you know, if the asking price isn't Gorman. Hopefully, I would imagine it would be brought up, but if you can, you know, clear out some outfield spots and get a guy who has 5 years of control, you don't have to go into next offseason worrying as much about filling even more spots that are going to be opened up in the rotation.
Yeah, I really would love a young guy with some control. I just don't know if it's out there without paying for it. I do believe, or at least I do feel, as if Cease could be obtained without Gorman and Donovan.
Yeah.
I do. But it's also still going to be a steep price. You're going to be talking Tink Hence. You're going to be talking Thomas Ajaysa. You're going to be talking a Gordon Graceffo, an Alec Burleson, maybe a Chase Davis. I mean, you're going to be talking your top echelon of prospects and multiple of them, you know, many of them.
Now, hear me out. Hear me out when I say something like this.
Yeah.
But I also think that an underrated player to go into a deal in Chicago would be Tommy Edman, because I think it would be a good replacement for them with Tim Anderson not coming back. So they're going to need obviously major league ready players too. And Tommy Edman is a player that has a short amount of control, but he's also a guy that could be extremely versatile for your team. So I think that would be a player that could be sought after, and you could package potentially a Carlson, potentially a Burleson, and then your prospects. And I think that pushes you over the edge on what other teams are going to be able to like pay for, you know?
Yeah, I mean I get where you're coming from that, and from the obvious perspective, I agree with you. But I do notice what the team's saying and worried about how Mason Wynn's going to start the season and why they want to hold on to Dylan Carlson just in case they have to move Mason Wynn back to shortstop and DC has to take over in center. You know, I think there's some merit to some of those comments. Would I let that stand in the way of making a deal? I wouldn't. If I had an opportunity to trade, you know, a handful of my top prospects, you know, let's say 2 or 3 of them, and they asked me to throw in Tommy Edman to solidify the deal, and I was already okay with the 3 prospects that I'm trading, and it literally comes down to Tommy Edman, in no way, shape, or form do I stop that from acquiring Dylan Cease. I sign on the dotted line. It's hard. It would be tough, and it would put the team in a situation where they might have to finagle a little bit. But you know, let's be honest here. There is some shortstops on the market that are willing and probably able to take a 1-year deal if you were that worried about Mason Wynn. You can go out. I mean, I think Nick Ahmed is a free agent, and he's sound defensively, and I would eagerly take him on for a 1-year deal if I needed some assurance at shortstop and I kept Dylan Carlson on the roster at center. I wouldn't hesitate. Overall, though, let's kind of get into some news. Let's get into some kind of situations that I'm hearing, and we can break that down and see where you guys stand on just the overall outlook. Reliever market, you know, some of the stuff that I've heard that I've put out there. You know, you have Phil Maton, who, you know, has been rumored by everybody at this point. You have Matsui, which I think is lower down right now on the Cardinals tier list. And, you know, Jordan Hicks. And, you know, from what I was told, Jordan Hicks at this moment is their preferred guy who they would like to bring back. There are other issues involved. It's not as black and white because of the discussions that fell apart at the deadline. but the Cardinals still view him in a very high light. But the price is going to get a little heavier. Um, is there a guy on the free agent market, and I'll let you start, Richie, that you think the Cardinals should make their main priority, or are you indifferent?
Um, I'd say I'm pretty indifferent. If it's true, I don't know what report I saw, but Hicks is asking for what, 4 or 5 year deal. I don't know if I would be very interested in a 4 or 5 year deal with Jordan Hicks. But if we're talking who's the best guy on the market that I'd like to have on the Cardinals, definitely Jordan Hicks. But a 4 or 5 year deal for him would be a little outrageous in my opinion.
I agree. I don't think we're going to be in the Hader market. I haven't heard anything about Hader. I would stay away from Josh Hader. Um, I do like
I
Phil.
don't yeah. I don't know enough about Phil Maton, so
He's solid. I wouldn't call
yeah.
him. I wouldn't necessarily call him like the main guy I would see like in a very high leverage situation, but he's been consistent. He's pitched for winners. I know he didn't contribute last year to Houston's playoff run, but he does have some consistency. He's a likable guy. He's approachable. I've talked to somebody that somewhat is not doesn't know him, but they know people who do know him, and all good things from a personality standpoint. He sounds like a typical Cardinal. I mean, to be honest, strong work ethic, gym like baseball rat, loves the game. Like literally, like if you went out and you're like, who should the Cardinals get based on who like they model their model players around? Like Phil Maton's the guy. So I would not be surprised. We got a little bit of a kind of rumors on Twitter, and we've touched on them, but I still think that there might be some teeth to it. I've heard that the Cardinals overwhelmingly like them. Then you had Derek Gould in the Post Dispatch right and made the connection. And, John Ditton has made comments about the Cardinals really exploring his market. And and we're going to have him on the show next week. We're going to be able to talk to him and figure out where things might be. If anything happens, we'll be able to maybe get his reaction from it, or if things are cooking, it may be a good time for him to join. He is going to be on vacation this week. He's taking some time off after the winter meeting, so we'll have him on next week, and that'll be a fun special episode of Heart of the Order. So I mean, everybody's connecting Phil Maton to the Cardinals, and I do think that there's some teeth to it. Mac, I know you have really set your sights on starting pitching. Me and you really haven't gotten into deep discussions of who you might prefer the Cardinals target for the bullpen. If we really look at the free agent bullpen arms that are available, is there a guy that you prefer, or are you indifferent as well?
um, the free agency market for relievers is it's kind of a question mark for me, to be quite honest, and it's because I don't have truly enough information. And what I mean by that is, I think Jordan Hicks is the guy that you target in free agency. He fits exactly what you need in your bullpen as a higher leverage guy on the back end. But Richie's point is very valid. If he's looking for a 4 or 5 year deal, that's null and void for me. So I know this is kind of like an outlier, and you might think I'm nuts when I say this, and Richie probably does too. But I think that if you can try to swing a deal for Dylan Cease in Chicago, there are going to be going through a rebuild. You need to target a pitcher like Garrett Crochet. It's a guy that could be absolutely locked down in the back end of your bullpen, and he could fit in with Gio, JoJo, Helsley. I mean, your bullpen literally could be really special coming into the season.
I think a combo package like that I think could be ideal. I even thought about the combo package in Cleveland for Bieber and Clase. I mean, if you're going to pay a premium, I mean, there's an opportunity there that you can pay a premium and get a really good, instead of getting like a for sure ace starting pitcher and, a solid bullpen arm, you can get like a really like ace type bullpen arm and a pitcher that does have a bit of upside I think there's a multiple paths that you can take. Are you guys down on Bieber as a lot of people are?
Not necessarily.
How about you, Mac?
No, I mean, I don't look at him as like a guy that is the top two in your system right now. Like maybe for the Cardinals it would be, but for like any team competing, I think Shane Bieber kind of right now is a three, and that's because his advanced analytics are on a severe decline. I'm not saying that you don't try to target him and see if you can bring him in and ultimately, get him back on track because maybe a change of scenery outside of Cleveland would be the answer. Um, but I have more preferred targets personally. I would be excited to see what he would be able to do with our rotation. Like I think that it could be formidable, but there's not a guarantee.
Do you think the Cardinals are going to target a right-handed reliever over a left-handed reliever?
Yes.
I think that's one of the reasons why the Yuki Matsui is a little lower on the list. I
But
think
I think for
about
the right opportunity though, like I mentioned Garrett Crochet, he is
yeah.
left-handed, right?
I believe.
Crochet is a left-hander.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's an opportunity where the Cardinals would look into it. The dude's only 24 years old, and he's got a career fucking ERA of 2.71. I mean,
He's coming off an injury though.
I mean,
true, but that also fits kind of like in the Cardinals mold too,
didn't
because you might be able to get a value on him in a combo deal. You know what I'm saying?
didn't Chicago didn't they just release Liam Hendricks?
Yeah, I think so. He was fighting cancer, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he came back. I think he's
I
you
didn't
know
see it.
I think he's hopefully healthy. Um, I like even let me see here. There's two relievers that I haven't heard much of, and we are having relievers
Relievers are
come
coming
off
off
the
the market.
market. So
Yeah, there
um,
was a couple that signed today.
yeah, and then there's two that I think could possibly have some bounce back consideration. I don't think I know Hendricks was coming back. He is a free agent. Uh,
They
you know
declined his $15 million option.
he did.
Yes.
Well, that
Can
could
I ask
The,
you guys a
the
question
White
now?
Sox
Serious.
declined.
maybe he wanted to leave Chicago too. You know what I mean?
Can I ask you guys a serious question real quick?
Yeah.
Does this like not like kind of indicate that the Cardinals like this is like the thing that really tells me the Cardinals are still in the starting pitching market and that's their preferred target at the moment? Because you're starting to see some of these guys come off the market already, and honestly, Joe Kelly and Craig Kimbrell were two kind of guys that kind of fit the mold of a higher leverage bullpen arm that would be a short term deal.
Yeah, and one thing that that I kind of look at overall is I think the Cardinals have had enough discussions with some of these relievers, and they have enough money in the budget to where if all they needed to do and all they wanted to do was a reliever, they could probably get any deal done and blow anybody out of the water. Like if they had a target for a reliever on the market and they wanted him, I mean the Cardinals have a tremendous amount of money still left to flex with. They could easily go out and get it. And they're talking about, I mean, we're talking about some relievers, between $8-10 million AAV. I mean, a lot of this could be done. So the fact that we haven't seen them just jump on something and get it done, especially now that Tyler O'Neill's been gone for a couple of days, it makes you wonder, you know, are they holding off for a reason? Do they want to make sure that everything financially they want to do is accounted for before they go out and lock down a free agent reliever? Your bullpen is in a position now to where, I still think you could use a piece, a solid piece in the back end. But if you absolutely needed to, I mean, I would, you could roll into this season with the bullpen that you have right now if you wanted to put Libby in there, and you could backfill it, and obviously you have Helsley and Gallegos as your top. Um, Any have not someone like no one's talking about Palante. What's the situation with Palante?
I was just gonna say that.
He's gonna be fine. I think.
I
I
think
think that the whole problem with the bullpen has been just overwork. past like 2-3 years.
I agree, and he's putting in a lot of work this off
He's
season.
a workhorse, man.
And he's really, I think, going to come into the season just an overall guy that you're going to be able to rely on. And no one is counting him in the bullpen as far as people you can rely on. And I think he's going to be. And I think the Cardinals still see him as such. So I think this bullpen is in a position to where I don't look at it and see it in shambles as much as it is. I think that's the point, Mac. I think it's just been, I mean, last season it was just killed. And there was just nothing you can do about it. And I do think there's some issues with Ryan Helsley. I mean, if you can't go back-to-back days, the Cardinals do need to find somebody other than Helsley that they can rely on at the end of the games. I don't know if Gallegos is that guy. He makes me worried. I don't need him pointing at the sky anymore on Monster Blast. I just don't. I think the Cardinals can use Gallegos. I think they can use Helsley, but I think they need at least a third guy there. I do. But as far as just like the mid and late innings of the bullpen, I think there's some guys in there that can handle it. And you can hold off on chasing that while you figure out where the starting pitching market's going to go. Because if you trade for Tyler Glasnow, hypothetically, let's say we trade for Tyler, that's $25 million coming your way. You may want to take a different approach for the reliever. So I think the Cardinals really need to make sure they know where this starting pitching market's going to go before they pull the trigger on the free agent reliever. And it does make you wonder. Now, as soon as this podcast hits, it's going to be breaking news. This is what happened last time. We posted the podcast, and then 7 hours later we wake up and Sonny Gray's a Cardinal. So I guess we'll wake up to a reliever in the morning. But I do think the Cardinals have to be patient, and I think fans have to be patient, because I think right now the longer you wait and the longer the Cardinals go without signing a reliever, I think maybe points in a positive direction on that starting pitching front.
Yeah, on the Ackerman show today, I assume that you listened to that, correct?
Yes.
So he said that Mozeliak was traveling. I also have kind of like questions in my own right with that. We just got out of the winter meetings. I understand that some of these guys are probably going to be taking vacations, but with still a lot of stuff to do left in the off season, I don't think Mozeliak is necessarily going to go out of his way to take a vacation. So it makes me kind of wonder what the hell he's traveling, like where he's headed to, what kind of discussions he's having on the plane. Because the man, I feel like that man just doesn't take a lot of time off until the team is like really solidified.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously we don't know. It could be something. It could be him visiting family. We don't know, but it did
speculating.
It did make me speculate as well. And there's more to it, and I kind of put this out, and this is by no means information. This is live being live and wearing a tinfoil hat. In 2020, Bill DeWitt Jr. bought a home in Hollywood Hills from actress Eva Longoria. Not a lot of people know this, but he bought, and he chinched her on the price too, by the way. She wanted $14 million for it. He gave her $8 million. So he weaseled her, talking a billionaire, talking an actress down a couple $1 million for her home. That ought to be ashamed of himself. I guess he's a businessman for a reason. However, not get off track. Bill DeWitt lives there during the off season. I think it's turned into one of his main residences. I think he quietly sold one of his other homes. And all indications point that Bill DeWitt has been there. Now, we do know that while Yamamoto has been in the United States, he has spent a tremendous amount of time in L.A. He is starting to meet with teams this weekend. I heard that he got here possibly around early this weekend, Friday. And we know that teams are going to be flying out to L.A. to meet him. We have confirmation at least of two teams, the Yankees and the Mets for sure. Yankees are tomorrow. You get where I'm going with this?
Yep.
Just kind of, thinking about it. Was Mo in L.A.? Did the Cardinals meet with Yamamoto this weekend? Did they want to be one of the first teams to get in on the meetings? Did Joe Wolf give them in the relationship? Did Joe Wolf give them, first access? Who
Well, it was
knows?
reported that Cohen flew down to Japan.
Yeah, we know what Cohen did.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Which, to me, I mean, if I'm being honest, very baller move. Very baller move. There was a list. There's a Japanese player that put out a list, and it was basically how to court a Japanese player. And one of them, like number 3 on the list was like show them that they are dearly wanted, and like make them a priority, and basically, without saying it, kind of fawn over them. And if Steve Cohen is the only guy that flew out to Japan to see him, I'm not saying Mets are the favorite, but to do that and to have the ability to cut the check that he's able to cut, I know a lot of teams are connecting Yamamoto to the Yankees, and there's a lot of good reasons to connect them, but you can't discount the Mets. I don't think he's going to go to the Dodgers. I could be wrong, but I I don't know. I know there was some, tidbits put out that he doesn't mind playing on a team with other Japanese players, and I understand that. But you almost got to view Shohei Ohtani as a different beast, because whatever if he joins the Dodgers, I don't I don't know if he'd be able to make a name for himself at all on that team. I mean, that's going to be Ohtani's team, and it'll always be
You're gonna be
Ohtani's team.
absolutely floored when we sign Yamamoto to like a 7-year deal.
See, I think if the Cardinals sign him, it's going to be between 8 and 10 years, because I think they almost would need to go there, because they would have to. I think you would lower the AAV slightly. So
But yeah, I mean, like, there's a situation where, regardless of what they would pay him or the term for that matter, you just seen it with Shohei's deal where they were able to defer it, make the team competitive going forward. If there was a way for the Cardinals to defer money, I really could think the sky could be the limit on what they would be willing to offer. A lot of people think it's nuts the Cardinals might go 300 million, and a lot of people probably think the Cardinals wouldn't. But if they were able to defer money in whatever way they so choose to see fit, and the player agreed to it, I wouldn't count the Cardinals out at all, to be quite honest with you.
yeah,
So you guys really think there's a chance here?
I think that there's a definite chance that the reporting was accurate when it was reported that the Cardinals were going to see this through regardless.
Yeah, well, I mean, they always have.
I
don't
think
Right. So I think that if there's right. So when I say that, like, I think when I say that I see them seeing this out, they're going to meet with him in the United States. If they have not, or like, all right, so like live reported that they've already met, right? Whatever. But like, let's say they meet again this week. It should give you full clarity of what the Cardinals' vision is, whether they can pony up the money or not. I think that's what a lot of the Cardinals fans truly just want out of the front office. They want to see them try. It's time to stop balking at the top talent on the market, because unfortunately the players are never going to get cheaper on the open market. We're in a time of inflated contracts in baseball in a sense, and some of these guys are truly worth the money that they're being paid. Like Shohei is the unicorn. So him getting 700 million, there's a very good chance that deal is going to work itself out with the amount of marketing in the big city that he's going to be playing in. Like, there's a lot of things that are very beneficial for him. But if you want to talk about, like, the Cardinals could see this as an investment opportunity in their own right, I would still entertain them seeing this through.
And here's what I know.
I think the Cardinals would be fully prepared to go north of 250, to be quite honest.
And here's what I know. I know that, I'm allowed pretty good access on some of the stuff that's going on. And Yamamoto, after a certain point, we heard up to it, and then it went dead silent. And I took that. It went dead silent, and parallel of when it went dead silent, we started exploring the trade market. And then we started getting connected to Dylan Cease and Tyler Glasnow and all this BS. And then Derek Gould took a soft stance on it. So after I heard about the Zoom meeting, I kind of got the impression that the Cardinals felt like they were out of it. And that could still bode true. right?
Sure.
But there is a part of me that wonders if the organization strategically got quiet because they knew the overall hype of the player was becoming elevated, and they knew if they were going to operate within the market quietly like they prefer, I think they realized they would have to keep a smaller circle. Now, I do believe that that's possible.
Well,
What I
keep in mind too, the Shohei shit was just
Yeah,
completely.
dominating. So
I mean, everything was inaccurate when it came to them. So I think they're
everything.
really respecting the Japanese market.
So what I do believe, at least on a microscopic, superficial level, regardless if we get the guy, I think we're going to find out that the Cardinals were more involved than a lot of people are currently giving them credit for. Which I don't know if people would like to hear that either, because it's another situation where the Cardinals engaged in someone and fell short, and I understand that frustration in that too. But I do believe you're going to find out that the Cardinals um, at least had a Zoom meeting with them. I don't know where it goes beyond that. Now, we may find out in the Zoom meeting that the Cardinals got an indication that he had a preference of a certain market, and Wolf led on and let them believe that the price point was going to a certain level, and the Cardinals could have backed off right then and there. Could have happened, but I'm confident in finding and knowing that I think we're going to find out in one way or another that we had a Zoom meeting with them, or we'll find out that we met him in person in LA a couple weeks ago. We're going to find out one of the two. And I think that'll eventually come to light. I don't think it's going to be possible without it coming to light. It's just a super big signing. It's a super big free agent market, and it's going to be hard to keep anything under wraps for so long. And so the Yamamoto market is one of those things that right now, am I certain that we're out? No. Am I certain that we're in? No. It's one of those rare situations where I'm kind of in the middle of I don't know what the hell's going on, and I don't think really anybody does. And even our local media, I don't think really understands the perception. Nobody has given a clear no, we're out of it. There's been a lot of assumptions. Even Derek Gould of the Post-Dispatch said the Cardinals overall, it was a weird situation because they were almost perceived as favorites from a lot of people, and then they just kept spending and spending, and his price kept rising and rising. And that was kind of an assumption that obviously the Cardinals moved on, but you got to realize, in a lot of these articles, Sonny Gray was always a target. So like the Cardinals targeted Sonny Gray, and then every article that was written, it was written in a way of, and then theirs, and then theirs. So another move I think has always been precluded to, and it's always been forecasted that the Cardinals were going to go after Sonny Gray and then continue their shopping. Now, I don't know if anyone foresaw him going at $300 million, and I've heard mixed reports. I've heard that the $300 million will be with the posting fee. I've heard $300 million will be as the contract plus the posting fee. I've heard a variety of speculations. So really, I couldn't even predict on what the guy's contract's going to be, but I'm sure we're going to find out. This week's going to be really big. I think by the weekend we might have a conclusion of the Yamamoto market, and then things will really start cooking. But really, it's to be determined, to be continued, however you want to phrase it. I know post winter meetings we took a little bit of a break as an organization, and I think a lot of people did around baseball. It was like take a step back and reassess. And that was one of the last kind of things that I got, was that teams are going to be engaging again and everyone's going to start circling the wagons. And that turns out that looks to be an accurate statement, because about 6 hours after I made that post, we started seeing a lot of stuff come off the board. We've been seeing relief pitchers moved. We've seen a couple trades, small, but a couple. So it does look like this market's going to go. However, I don't know if Ohtani is the one holding up the market. Do you guys get the same sense? Do you get the sense that maybe Yamamoto needs to fall before things really start cooking?
Mac.
No, I personally don't, because I only think that there's going to be a very limited amount of teams that are truly going to be able to acquire Yamamoto. So I think that there will still be moves that are made in the meantime. They might not be like big, but you might not see Blake Snell come off the market. But it wouldn't surprise me if there's teams that know that they cannot get Yamamoto, so they'll pivot to Dylan Cease and they would slide overpay in order to get him. I think that if Chicago got like the lucrative offer that they were seeking, they would trade him regardless if Yamamoto was available or not. So I don't think it's just one player holding everything up. I just think it's the market has just been slow and it's kind of like on the burner right now and it's simmering, but it's not gotten to the point where we have a kitchen fire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, completely agree. Um, I don't know. In my head, I feel like we've, dug deep into some topics that, I think we wanted to cover. Is there anything else that, could be percolating that you want to discuss?
How do you think the Dodgers do?
Well, the Dodgers, I think they're going to spend some more money. And I think that's evident. I think literally when I found out Ohtani deferred the contract, I think my first tweet was shit. Because it's the realization that not only are they going to come out of this offseason with the best player in baseball, but they're going to do more. Whether that's Glass now sees, I think wherever they want to get in, I think the Dodgers win any trade they get in because they have the young arms to do it. I don't think they're going to be able to acquire everybody on their shopping list as far as like pitchers, like every pitcher on the market they're not going to get Yamamoto and Cease and Glasnow, right? So like whatever the Dodgers get, um, I think that's where the Cardinals are going to have to play in, like almost like the leftovers. The good thing is there's some really good leftovers. So I think the Dodgers are going to get whoever the next person on their list is. I think they're going to get. And then after that, I think we're going to really see unless it's Yamamoto. Yamamoto's the wild card. We don't know where he's going to go, but if they want Dylan Cease, I'm confident they'll get Dylan Cease because they have the young pitching that Chicago's going to want. So, so I think we have to let that play out, and then we'll have to see how things look. Unless the Cardinals are willing to trade a Brendan Donovan or Nolan Gorman to Chicago, which I wouldn't, and who knows what they even want. But if they want a prospect-centric deal, I find it hard for the Cardinals to go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers on the pitching level, and that's even if you include Tin Cans.
Yeah, it's a fair statement. You know, what's weird to me is you've got arguably the best pitcher potentially in the market hasn't even been talked about, Trevor Bauer. I know there's, a lot of negative surrounding the name, but
there was a interesting so like the guys on there's like a podcast, Hot Take Central. It's a Jim Hayes, Charlie Marlowe, it's those guys' podcast. They actually had Mo on. And he's supposed to be on for 30 minutes and then he cut it to 10. And then because he said he had to go and work on something, and then 7 hours later Tyler O'Neill was traded. So, and they said that it started cooking that morning. So we know why he only cut it to 10 minutes. But there was a guy on that show that specifically asked him, has there been any discussions on Trevor Bauer? And Mo, it was a stupid question how he phrased it because he just obviously gave Mo an out. And Mo said, well, I don't comment on free agents, but interesting question. And he left it at that. Now, I'm not saying I believe the Cardinals would go in on Trevor Bauer. I think it's an interesting question because I think the answer to it would be the interesting part of why the Cardinals wouldn't do it. But I do think that Trevor Bauer might get pushed out of this league again this year. I don't know if there's going to be a team that's going to do it.
All signs are kind of pointing that way.
Unless we get into spring training and a massive injury happens, and he decides not to go back, overseas, and he waits, and he takes an opportunity that some team gets desperate and decides to call him, and it's towards the end of spring training. See, if I was a team, if I was a team that wanted to sign Trevor Bauer, I would wait until the end of spring training.
Yeah.
I would talk to him. I would say, hey, we're interested. Stay fresh. Be ready. But we're not gonna bring you in until we're breaking camp, because we don't want the media fray. We can deal with it when we break camp. We can choose when and how we give media access. But spring training is such just a conglomerate of everybody kind of chasing, and the media access in spring training is a lot more easier for media to get into certain places, and it becomes a little bit more hectic. I would say, hey, I'm interested. We might want to bring you on, but we're probably talking about a week before we break camp that we'd be willing to talk about it. That's what I would do if I was an organization.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and you'd get him at the cheapest price. If it's his only MLB offer, you'd have to imagine he'd take it on a prove-it deal.
Oh, heartbeat. He would take it. He would take major league minimum right now in a heartbeat if it meant him getting back in the league.
Right, and I obviously am a fan of Trevor Bauer, so I can't speak for the other side and how much media backlash these teams would expect to get from signing him. But I mean, a team like the Pirates, or I'm not going to include like the A's in there, but the Rockies, Pirates, what do you have to lose? I mean, you sell them at the deadline for prospects at that point.
Oh yeah, because if he comes back and he's looking like Cy Young caliber,
yeah.
I mean, and you're Oakland, imagine. I mean,
the backlash, and then you sell them off at the deadline, and you get a couple top prospects, and it's over.
You become the team. You take the heat.
Yeah.
And then you eat it, and then you leave the city anyways. And then by the time you get to Vegas, no harm, no foul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what the whole thought process is there. Maybe there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes with the whole situation, but yeah. I genuinely can't wrap my head around the fact that no one has expressed any interest in a guy who's won the Cy Young when did he win it? 2020?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mickey Mouse Cy Young. I think if there is a team that take a chance on him, they're going to get one hell of a bargain. And I agree with you. I don't know if it's going to happen. All right, well, I think that'll do it for this week's Heart of the Order. Again, next week, I believe we're going to have MLB.com John Denton join us, and that'll be a fun episode.